Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. This time, we're tackling those oh-so-fun moments when you're put on the spot, like Q&As or toasts, or even just a tough conversation.
Those situations can definitely throw you off your game.
We actually got a suggestion to check out Matt Abraham's Stanford workshop. Think fast, talk smart, and wow, it's got some great stuff in there.
Yeah, Abrams dives right into the big thing that trips people up, right? Anxiety.
He starts with a brain teaser about counting F's in a sentence. And you know what? I totally fell for it.
It's a great way to show how even when we think we're focused, our brains can miss things when we're under pressure.
But then he goes on to say anxiety isn't necessarily a bad thing.
He actually says a bit of anxiety can be good for you.
Really?
Yeah, he points out that some anxiety can give you energy and focus, make you sharper.
So it's not about getting rid of it altogether, but
It's about learning to manage it, work with it.
so how do we do that? How do we tame the anxiety beast and make it work for us?
Well, Abrahams has 3 techniques based on actual research. And the first one is really simple. You greet your anxiety.
So instead of trying to ignore those nervous feelings,
Exactly. You just acknowledge them. You say, hey, this is me feeling anxious, and that's okay.
that's so interesting. It reminds me of that idea, name it to tame it, for dealing with tough emotions.
There's a lot of research that shows that kind of approach works. Now, the second technique Abrahams talks about is changing how you think about speaking.
Oh, this is where he says to think of it as a conversation, right? Not like you're performing on a stage.
Right. When you think of it as a conversation, even just chatting with a friend, you naturally focus more on connecting with people and less on being perfect.
That makes a lot of sense. Because when you're talking to a friend, you're not worried about every word being perfect.
Exactly. And to reinforce that conversational feel, Abraham suggests using things like questions, inclusive language, things that build rapport.
It's like you're inviting the audience into the conversation.
No, the third technique is all about being present, focusing on the here and now.
So not getting caught up in those what if I mess up thoughts.
Exactly. Abrahams points out that worrying about the future, like potential negative outcomes, just feeds anxiety.
To combat that, he actually has the audience try a tongue twister. It was hilarious, but it did make me forget about my worries for a second.
That's the point. Research shows that focusing on the present moment can really reduce anxiety.
Okay, so we've got these 3 ways to manage anxiety. Greeting it, thinking of speaking as a conversation, and being present. But then Abrahams goes on to outline 4 steps for getting better at spontaneous speaking.
And this is where the workshop gets really interactive and fun. He uses some pretty unique activities and games.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What's the first step?
The first step is get out of your own way. He uses this game called Shout the Wrong Name.
Wait, shout the wrong name? What's that all about?
So you point at random things and call them anything but their actual name. Like you might point at a chair and shout, banana.
Okay, that sounds chaotic, but fun.
It is. And the point is to break free from that need to overthink and plan everything, even in situations where you can't really plan.
So it's about letting go of perfectionism.
Yes. Abrahams calls it daring to be dull, which might seem counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, especially for people who are used to striving for excellence.
But in the context of speaking spontaneously, it's about shifting your focus. It's not about being brilliant. It's about being present and authentic.
I can see how letting go of that pressure to be witty or clever all the time could actually make you more spontaneous.
Exactly. When you're not trying to control every aspect of the interaction, you open yourself up to genuine connection.
Okay, so get out of your own way is about embracing imperfection and trusting your gut. What's the next step for spontaneous speaking success?
The next step is all about reframing those speaking moments. Instead of seeing them as threats, you see them as opportunities.
I like that. But how do you actually do that?
Abrahams uses this hilarious game where you give each other imaginary gifts.
Okay, now you're really speaking my language. Imaginary gifts, I'm all ears.
So you give your partner an imaginary gift, and they have to describe opening it and what they find. Then you have to come up with a reason why you gave them that particular gift, even if it's totally random.
That sounds like a great way to practice thinking on your feet.
It is, and that's the whole point. It's about being adaptable and seeing the potential in every interaction.
So even if things don't go exactly as planned, you can find a way to make it work.
Exactly. You can turn those potentially awkward moments into opportunities to connect and have fun.
Okay, so we've got to get out of your own way and see it as an opportunity. What's the third step in this framework?
The third step is deceptively simple, but it's so important. Slow down and listen.
Oh boy, I know that's important, but I'm a fast talker, especially when I'm nervous.
It's a common tendency.
Yeah.
But active listening is crucial, especially in spontaneous situations.
Because it helps you tailor your response to what the other person actually needs.
Precisely. And to really drive this point home, Abrahams does this activity where you have to spell out every word you say.
Spell out every word. That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is. But it forces you to slow down, pay attention to each word, and really absorb what your partner is saying.
I can see how that would break you out of that habit of thinking about your reply before you've even fully heard the other person.
It shifts you from listen to reply mode to listen to understand mode, and that's a game changer for building real connection.
Okay, we've got get out of your own way, see it as an opportunity, and now slow down and listen. What's the final step?
The final step is all about structure and storytelling.
Wait, structure even in spontaneous speaking.
Yes. Abrahams argues that even in impromptu situations, having a framework to guide your message is key.
So it's not about memorizing a script, but having a mental map to help you organize your thoughts.
Exactly. He introduces two frameworks that are really useful: problem solution benefit and what so what now what. And to show how they work, he actually has the audience practice selling a slinky.
Selling a slinky. That's hilarious.
It is. And it shows how you can take even a simple topic and make it interesting by using a clear structure.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. From managing anxiety to embracing spontaneity to the importance of structure, this workshop is packed with insights.
And it all comes back to the idea that effective communication isn't about being perfect or having all the answers.
It's about being present, adaptable, and willing to connect with others.
Exactly.
And on that note, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. We'll be right back after a short break to dive into more of Abraham's techniques and answer some questions from our listeners.
Welcome back. It's amazing how much we've already uncovered about spontaneous speaking.
I know, right? And what I really like is how Abrahams combines those research-backed techniques with ideas from improv.
Yeah, it's fun and it actually works. It makes learning about communication so much more engaging.
It feels less like, following a bunch of rules and more about developing a whole new mindset.
Exactly. It's about being more open to spontaneity, more focused on connecting with people.
And one of the things that really stuck with me is that idea about acknowledging anxiety. Instead of trying to fight it, you just say, hey, anxiety, I see you there.
It's like you're taking away its power by not letting it control you.
It's much better than just trying to push through those nervous feelings, right?
And another key takeaway, I think, is the importance of structure. And that might seem odd for spontaneous speaking, but it's about having a framework.
I could see that. It's like having a map to guide you, even when you're exploring new territory.
Abrahams gives us some really practical frameworks too, like problem solution benefit or the what so what now it would approach.
Those frameworks can give you a sense of stability even in the middle of chaos.
They can be adapted to all sorts of situations too, from giving a toast at a wedding to like a tough conversation with a coworker.
Another thing that stood out to me was how much he emphasized listening, really listening.
Yeah, it's easy to get so caught up in our own heads that we forget to actually tune in to what the other person is saying.
I think that exercise where you spell out every word you say is brilliant. It forces you to slow down and really pay attention.
It shows how much richer our conversations can be when we focus on understanding instead of just waiting for our turn to talk.
It's not just about the words either. It's about those nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
Tone of voice, body language, all of it.
Right. Active listening means using all your senses. It's about being fully present and open to the other person's perspective.
And I love how Abrahams uses those improv ideas like dare to be dull and yes and.
Those aren't just catchy phrases. They represent a whole approach to communication, one that's open and curious and ready for anything.
And that's what effective communication is all about, right? Being present, being adaptable, being willing to connect on a genuine level.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where ideas can flow, where mistakes are okay, and where authentic connection comes first.
It's really inspiring to hear Abrahams talk about the power of communication.
It's not just about sharing information. It's about making connections, sparking action, making a difference in the world.
It's a reminder that we all have the potential to be better communicators. It's a skill we can develop.
It takes practice and patience. But as we get more comfortable, our confidence grows, and we can really start to connect with people and make an impact.
Abrahams also encourages us to find ways to practice these skills in everyday life. It could be a presentation at work or just chatting with a friend.
The more you practice, the easier it gets. And those games, like Shout the Wrong Name and the Imaginary Gift Exchange, are a great way to get started.
They sound like fun ways to loosen up and get out of your head.
They help you think outside the box and react in the moment, which is crucial for any kind of communication.
If anyone's feeling inspired to improve their communication, I definitely recommend checking out Abraham's workshop and his book, Speaking Up Without Freaking Out.
He's got so much practical advice that you can start using today.
And remember, it's a journey. Be patient with yourself, try new things, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Because communication shouldn't be a chore. It should be a chance to connect, to share, and to be yourself.
Speaking of sharing, we've got some great questions from our listeners that we're going to dive into now.
Okay, let's hear them.
Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to tackle some listener questions about spontaneous speaking.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, our first question comes from Sarah. She writes, I get so nervous before presentations that my mind goes completely blank. Any tips?
Oh, Sarah, I've been there. So many people experience that feeling. It's like your brain just checks out right when you need it the most.
It's the worst.
It is. Abrahams talks about this a lot, and he really emphasizes preparation. The more you know your material, the less likely you are to freeze up.
So it's about building a solid foundation so you don't crumble under pressure.
Exactly. And practice, practice, practice. Rehearse your presentation over and over in front of a mirror or a friend. It helps build that muscle memory and boost your confidence.
And even if your mind does go blank, remember those techniques we talked about earlier, like acknowledging your anxiety, thinking of it as a conversation.
Right. Those can help manage those in-the-moment nerves. And don't be afraid to use visual aids, even just some simple notes. Those can be lifesavers if you lose your train of thought.
Okay, our next question is from John. He says, I tend to ramble when I speak, especially when I'm put on the spot. How can I be more concise?
John, you're definitely not alone there. Rambling happens, especially when we're nervous. One thing that can really help is using structures, even in impromptu situations.
You mean those frameworks like problem, solution, benefit, or what, so what, now what?
Those are great. They give you a roadmap, help you stay on track, and prevent you from going off on tangents.
Like mental guardrails to keep you from veering off course.
Another tip is to practice summarizing your main points in just a sentence or two. Force yourself to get to the essence of your message.
It's like creating a tweet-sized version of what you want to say.
Exactly. Brevity and clarity are key. And finally, John, don't forget to breathe and pause.
So easy to forget when you're nervous.
Taking a moment to breathe can help you slow down and speak more clearly.
And it gives your audience a chance to catch up.
Our last question is from Maria. She asks, I'm an introvert and public speaking terrifies me. Will these techniques really work for someone like me?
Maria, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Absolutely. And I want to assure you that these techniques can be incredibly helpful for introverts.
Introversion isn't a weakness, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different way of being in the world.
And it often comes with strengths, like being a great listener, which is so important for communication. Some of the strategies we talked about, like using structure and really listening to others, can actually be easier for introverts.
That's a good point.
Remember, Maria, it's okay to start small. Practice in low-pressure situations. Find your voice in a way that feels comfortable for you.
You know, what I find so inspiring about all of this is that Abrahams really focuses on how communication can be transformative.
It's not just about getting your point across. It's about connecting with people, motivating them, making a real difference.
It's a skill we can all work on and get better at over time.
The more we practice, the more confident we become, and the more possibilities open up.
So keep practicing, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep sharing your unique voice with the world.
I think that's a great note to end on.
It is. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of spontaneous speaking. Remember, it's not about being perfect.
It's about being authentic, connecting with people, and being ready for anything.
And until next time, keep diving deep into those fascinating topics that spark your curiosity.